The kitchen was quiet, with only the faint hum of the refrigerator breaking the silence. Linda had left her phone on the counter again, and a quick glance at the clock told me she'd be home soon. I thought about heading out, maybe grabbing coffee, but curiosity got the better of me. We'd been together for a decade. Our lives were pretty open. Picking up her phone to check the calendar or to scroll through our photos was as natural as breathing. But when I swiped up and entered the passcode, our anniversary, 11/25, it didn't unlock. I frowned, typing it again, slower this time, thinking I must have been distracted or something. But again, the screen flashed, rejecting the code. I paused, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck rise. It was a small thing, just a passcode, but it felt like hitting a wall. I knew she wouldn't have changed it. Why would she? I took a deep breath, then tried another code. Maybe her birthday? No. Maybe our dog's name? Nothing. My fingers hovered over the screen, indecisive, when an odd idea struck me. Don't be ridiculous, Jack, I muttered to myself, but the thought wouldn't leave. David's birthday. David, my best friend since college, the guy who had been part of our lives for years. It didn't make sense, but I tried it anyway. I typed in his birthday, and with a quiet click, the screen unlocked. I just stood there, blinking. That cold knot in my stomach tightened. I clicked through her messages, scrolling down until I saw David's name in bold. My finger hovered over the message thread, heart pounding in my ears. I could barely see straight as I opened it, and the first message I read made my blood run cold. There was a text from Linda, sent just the day before. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about it. Every muscle in my body went tense. I kept reading, each message worse than the last. There were pet names, little jokes I didn't recognize, plans for next time. Then, a photo, one of her, laughing, dressed in the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. The same dress I remembered her wearing when she said she was going out with her friends. My hands shook, and I set the phone down, pressing my palms flat against the countertop as if grounding myself. I wanted to scream, to smash the phone, to cry, but nothing came out. Only a numb, empty ache settled in as the betrayal sunk deeper and deeper. A noise behind me broke the silence. I looked up to see Linda standing in the doorway, her eyes widening as she took in the scene, me, holding her phone, the open message thread glaring from the screen. She quickly masked her surprise, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. Jack? Her voice was calm, too calm. What are you doing with my phone? I swallowed, struggling to keep my voice steady. Your phone. Right. I held it up, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Forgot the passcode, so I had to try a few interesting choices. Her expression shifted, the calmness cracking just slightly as her eyes darted toward the screen. You had no right to go through my messages, Jack. That's my private stuff. Your private stuff? I echoed, barely able to keep the anger from spilling out. I'm your husband, Linda. We share everything. Or at least I thought we did. She crossed her arms, shifting her weight, and I noticed the defensive way she glanced down. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, her voice a little higher than usual. I clenched my jaw, holding back a wave of frustration. Then what is it, Linda? Because from here, it looks like I just found out that my wife has been sneaking around with my best friend. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her eyes flitted back and forth as if searching for something to say, some explanation that would make this all go away. But the silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Finally, she whispered, Jack, it's complicated. I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, my voice rising, unable to hold back. So what? It was just an accident. You accidentally betrayed me with the one person I trusted more than anyone. She flinched, her hand going to her face as if to block out the accusation. You don't understand. Things have been different between us lately. My heart pounded with rage and a bitter hurt. Different? You mean a little too routine? So you decided that sleeping with my best friend was the best way to fix that? Her voice wavered. Jack, please, I know this looks bad, but just listen. We've been drifting apart. I didn't know how to reach you anymore, I laughed bitterly. And David was the answer? You thought he could reach you better than I could? She sighed, running a hand through her hair, and the frustration on her face only deepened the betrayal. I didn't plan for this, Jack. It just happened, I repeated, my voice empty now. I looked away from her, my gaze landing on the photo of us on the wall, taken years ago. We looked so happy, so oblivious. Linda reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the gesture feeling as hollow as her excuses. Jack, I'm sorry, save it, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You had your chance to talk to me before all of this. But now I'm done listening. I left the room, the silence following me as I walked away, knowing that whatever had been between us was broken beyond repair. The last thing I heard was her quiet sob as I closed the door, blocking out the sound of her pleas and leaving behind a marriage that had once meant everything to me. The days after discovering the messages were a blur. I went through each moment numb, like I was sleepwalking through my own life. I couldn't shake the image of Linda and David together, couldn't silence the voices in my head asking how I had missed this, how I had let my marriage become a place where this could happen. Linda tried to talk to me a few times, but I wasn't ready. Every time I saw her face, I felt that hollow ache inside me, a reminder that everything I thought we had was a lie. Instead of speaking, I left our conversations hanging in silence, brushing past her with little more than a nod. A week later, I found myself standing on the edge of a decision I didn't think I'd ever have to make. I'd been in touch with a lawyer, and I had all the paperwork I needed to start the divorce process. All that was left was to decide when to serve them, but I knew I had to face Linda first, to at least close this chapter of our lives with some semblance of dignity. I asked Linda to meet me at our usual coffee spot, the same place we'd been going to for years. I arrived early, half hoping she wouldn't show. But sure enough, 5 minutes later, I saw her walking through the door, her face a mix of apprehension and relief. She spotted me and walked over, clutching her bag tightly. Hey, Jack! She greeted me, voice soft. She seemed hesitant, as if she was measuring every word before letting it slip out. Linda, I replied, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. She sat down, her eyes scanning my face, searching for some sign of what I was feeling. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. The anger I had felt in the beginning had settled into something colder, something resolute. Thank you for meeting me, she said, fidgeting with the strap of her bag. I didn't want things to end without us talking. There's so much to say. I raised an eyebrow. Is there? I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. Because honestly, Linda, I'm not sure what's left to discuss. She winced, and I saw her hands tighten around the cup the barista had just handed her. Jack, please, I know what I did was horrible. I can't explain it. But I don't know, lonely. Things between us had changed. I didn't know how to fix it, so your solution was to cheat on me? I asked, voice bitter. With David of all people? My best friend. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away, guilt written across her face. I know. I betrayed you in the worst way. But it wasn't just that. Jack, you've been distant. Always working, always busy. I felt like I was invisible to you. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my emotions in check. And you think I haven't noticed things changing? You think I didn't feel the distance too? But I was still here, Linda. I was still fighting for us. She blinked, her tears spilling over. I didn't know how to tell you that I was struggling. I didn't think you'd care. I looked away, swallowing the painful lump that had formed in my throat. Well, you didn't give me a chance to care, did you? You made that choice for both of us. She reached across the table, placing a hand on mine. Her touch felt cold, unfamiliar. Please, Jack, can we at least try to work this out? Counseling, talking, anything? I don't want to throw away everything we had. I pulled my hand back, folding my arms. Linda, I've already made my choice. I've spoken to a lawyer. The papers are ready. I didn't want it to come to this, but I can't look at you without seeing what you did. She let out a shaky breath, the reality settling over her. You're really going through with this? Yes, I said firmly. I am. She lowered her head, tears falling silently. I watched her for a moment, and despite the pain she'd caused me, A part of me almost felt pity for her. Almost. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, I replied, my tone softer now. Honestly, I think saying anything more would just make this harder for both of us. She looked up, her gaze meeting mine, searching for some hint of the man she used to know. Jack, I never meant for any of this. I never wanted to hurt you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Well, you did. And you hurt yourself too. You've lost me, Linda. And you've lost David too, because I'm not going to let this stay quiet. Her eyes widened, panic flashing in them. What do you mean? I leaned back, crossing my arms. David and I work in the same industry. Our social circles overlap. People are going to know, Linda. I won't lie for you. I won't cover up what you did. I refuse to carry the weight of your choices. She covered her mouth, visibly shaken. Jack, please, don't ruin everything. Ruin everything? I shot back, my voice hard. Linda, you already did that. I'm just finishing what you started, she sobbed quietly, her hand trembling as she reached for her drink, but she didn't lift it. She just stared at it, as if it could give her the answers she so desperately wanted. I stood up, feeling the finality of it all. Linda, I don't hate you. I don't know you anymore. And I don't want to be with someone I can't trust. She looked up at me, her tear-streaked face full of regret. I'm sorry, Jack. I don't know how I let things get this far, I sighed, feeling the weight of the past 10 years slipping off my shoulders. Maybe one day, I'll understand too. But for now, this is goodbye, Linda. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked out of the cafe. I felt a strange sense of relief as I stepped outside. The sun was shining, the world was moving on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to move on too. The divorce proceedings were underway, and I felt an odd mix of relief and anger swirling within me. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, but the injustice of Linda's betrayal lingered like a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't just want to end things with her. I wanted to ensure she understood the consequences of her actions, and I wanted David to feel the fallout too. After all, he had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I spent days crafting my plan, carefully plotting my next move. I had spoken with my lawyer, who advised me to keep things as amicable as possible. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want this to end quietly. I wanted them both to face the truth of what they had done, to be held accountable, not only in our personal lives but in the world we all shared. One evening, as I was poring over documents in my cramped home office, I heard my phone buzz. It was a text from David. Hey man. Can we talk? I paused, feeling a surge of emotion. The idea of confronting him face to face filled me with a mix of dread and exhilaration. I thought about ignoring him, but I quickly typed back. Sure. Let's meet tomorrow. Same place. I hit send, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what I would say, but I knew I needed to make my point. This wasn't just about the affair, it was about friendship, loyalty, and the gut-wrenching betrayal of trust. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop early, my mind swirling with thoughts. When David walked in, he looked tired, his usual easy smile replaced by a furrowed brow. He spotted me and approached, hesitating before taking a seat across from me. Hey, Jack, he said, his voice hesitant. Hey, I replied, keeping my tone cool. You wanted to talk? Yeah, I think we need to clear the air. I'm really sorry about everything that happened with Linda. It was a mistake, a huge mistake, he stammered, running a hand through his hair. I never meant to hurt you. I leaned back, crossing my arms. A mistake? You call it a mistake when you sleep with my wife? That's an understatement, David. You destroyed everything we built together. He looked genuinely pained, but that didn't soften the anger brewing inside me. I know, and I'm not trying to downplay it. I got caught up in things. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything? I shot back, incredulous. Then why the hell did you do it? Why risk everything for a moment of weakness? David sighed, looking down at his coffee cup. I wish I could take it back, Jack. I really do. But I don't know how to fix this. That's the problem, isn't it? I leaned forward, staring him down. You don't get to fix this. You both made your choices, and now you'll both have to live with them. His expression shifted, a flash of panic crossing his face. What do you mean? Are you going to tell people? You wouldn't. Of course I would. I interrupted. You think I'm just going to let this slide? You think I'm going to sit back while you pretend none of this ever happened? Jack, please don't. Don't what, David? Don't tell the truth? You need to face the consequences of your actions. You can't just walk away from this like it was nothing. Look, I'll talk to Linda. I'll fix things, he pleaded. We can keep this between us. No, I said, my voice steady. I won't be a part of your cover-up. You and Linda need to face the truth, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. David's face turned pale as he realized the gravity of my intentions. You wouldn't. You can't just destroy my career like that. I won't destroy your career, David. You did that yourself. But I will ensure that your little affair doesn't stay hidden. I leaned back in my chair, watching as his face contorted with panic. I have connections too, you know. People who would love to know about the friendship you've built with my wife. Jack, don't do this, he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. I smiled, feeling a surge of power. You should have thought about that before you decided to betray your best friend. With that, I stood up and left him sitting there, wide-eyed and trembling, a storm of emotion swirling in his expression. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness as I walked away. I had been prepared to let it go, to move on without dragging anyone else into the fallout. But the moment he walked into that coffee shop, I knew that my need for justice would override any desire for closure. In the following days, I put my plan into action. I reached out to Richard, our boss, who had always valued loyalty and integrity. I scheduled a meeting under the pretense of discussing a work project. The moment I stepped into his office, I felt a rush of adrenaline. Jack, good to see you. What's on your mind? Richard asked, leaning back in his chair. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. It's about David. And Linda. Richard's expression shifted, his interest piqued. What about them? I laid it all out, recounting the affair with a calm I didn't quite feel. They've betrayed not just me, but the trust we all built in this company. I think it's important for you to know what's really happening behind the scenes. As I spoke, I saw Richard's expression change, his brows furrowing in concern. This is serious, Jack. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. I wouldn't say it if I didn't have proof. This isn't just personal. It affects the team, the morale, and our clients. People need to know what kind of leaders they're working with. Richard nodded slowly, processing the information. I appreciate you bringing this to me. I'll look into it further. I left the meeting feeling a weight lift off my shoulders, the tension of holding back my feelings finally releasing. I was no longer just a victim. I was taking control. The whispers of my betrayal were becoming roars, and I was ready to watch their world crumble around them. The following week was rife with tension at the office. I heard the hushed conversations, the nervous glances exchanged between David and Linda. The rumor mill had already started turning, and as I sat at my desk, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction wash over me. Hey, Jack! One of my colleagues, Sam, approached me. Is it true about David and Linda? I nodded, keeping my face neutral. It's all true. Damn, man. I had no idea, he said, shaking his head. That's messed up. Yeah, it is. I looked around the office, noting the glances being exchanged. But it's not just about me. It's about the integrity of our team. As the days turned into weeks, I saw David's confidence erode. Once the charismatic go-getter, he now wandered the office like a ghost, unsure of how to face the people he'd betrayed. Linda's usual bubbly demeanor had vanished too, replaced by a shadow of shame. They were losing not only their reputation but their place in our social circle. I had won the battle, but it felt more like a war that was far from over. I wasn't seeking revenge for the sake of revenge. I was reclaiming my dignity, showing them both that there were consequences for their actions. It was a bitter pill, but one I was willing to swallow to find my peace. The fallout had begun, and as I watched David and Linda navigate their new reality, I felt a sense of closure slowly creeping in. I knew I could finally move on, free from the shadows of their betrayal, ready to rebuild my life on my terms. Weeks turned into months, and the air was thick with tension between David and Linda. Their affair had become the talk of the office, whispers trailing behind them like ghosts. Each time I passed them in the hall or caught sight of them at meetings, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. While I was reclaiming my life, they were losing theirs, and it didn't bring me the joy I thought it would. The whole situation felt like a festering wound, and I was ready to cauterize it once and for all. As the annual charity gala approached, I saw it as my final opportunity for closure, a chance to put the last nail in the coffin of my old life. The event was one of the highlights of the year for our company, bringing together clients, employees, and their significant others. Linda had been heavily involved in the planning, a fact that only added to my resolve to confront her one last time in front of everyone. I meticulously planned my move, knowing that the charity event would be the perfect stage to expose the truth. I secured a table near the front, a strategic location to ensure that everyone would see me when the time came. I even contacted an old friend who was a photographer, asking him to capture the moment. I wanted this to be remembered, not just for me but for everyone who had been betrayed by their trust. The night of the gala arrived, and I felt a nervous energy coursing through me. As I walked into the venue, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Lavish decorations adorned the space, and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. I spotted Linda across the room. Her face lit up as she chatted with colleagues, exuding the same charm that had drawn me to her in the first place. But now, all I saw was the woman who had shattered my world. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. As the evening progressed, I mingled with colleagues, exchanging pleasantries while keeping an eye on Linda and David, who stood together, talking animatedly. Their camaraderie felt mocking to me, and I was determined to end it. When the time was right, I excused myself from a conversation and approached the stage. The event's organizer had just announced a brief intermission, giving me the perfect opportunity to make my presence known. I climbed the stairs, feeling the eyes of the crowd turn toward me. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice steady but loud enough to capture their attention. "I'd like to say a few words." A murmur rippled through the crowd as I scanned the room, locking eyes with David and Linda. Their expressions shifted, confusion morphing into panic. I knew this was it. "I'm here to talk about trust," I began, letting the weight of my words settle in. "Trust is the foundation of any relationship, whether it be personal or professional. And trust is something that, unfortunately, I found to be completely shattered." I took a deep breath, glancing at Linda, whose face had gone pale. "Linda and David, you both chose to betray that trust, not just between the two of us, but in our entire circle. What happened between you wasn't a mistake, it was a conscious decision, one that had serious consequences." I pulled out my phone, the screen illuminated with the damning text messages I had saved. "I think it's only fair that everyone knows the truth. You can't expect to walk away from this unscathed." Before I could continue, David's voice cut through the tension. "Jack, don't do this! You're better than this! Better than this?" I shot back, my heart racing. "I'm not the one who betrayed my best friend and my wife. You two need to own up to your choices." Linda stood, her face flushed with a mix of anger and fear. "Jack, this isn't the way to handle this. Please, let's talk about this privately." "No, Linda," I said, my voice firm. "This is a public matter now. You made your choice in public, and now everyone deserves to know the truth about the friendship you had with David." I turned back to the crowd, raising my voice to address them all. "I want everyone here to know that trust can be broken in an instant, and once it is, it can take a lifetime to rebuild. I'm here tonight to reclaim my dignity, to show that I refuse to be a victim of someone else's betrayal." A ripple of murmurs flowed through the audience. I saw the realization dawning on some faces, the whispers of their own relationships echoing in their minds. Linda's voice quivered as she responded. "Jack, please. We can work this out." "I'm sorry," I shook my head. "It's too late for apologies. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. I'm moving on, and I want everyone here to see how betrayal can destroy not just individuals, but friendships and trust as well. As I finished my speech, I caught a glimpse of my friend, the photographer, capturing the moment. I felt a surge of power, of release. I was no longer the victim but the one taking control of the narrative. The moment was cathartic, a final act of closure that would forever mark this chapter of my life. The crowd erupted in applause, and I stepped down from the stage, feeling lighter. I knew that my actions would ripple through our lives, impacting not only David and Linda but everyone connected to us. As I made my way through the crowd, I felt a sense of satisfaction, a vindication for the pain I had endured. David attempted to approach me, but I raised a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "No, David. You don't get to explain or justify your actions. You've lost your chance for that." As I walked past him, I spotted Linda, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. But then I remembered the nights I spent in anguish, the feeling of betrayal that had consumed me. "Jack!" she called after me, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you." I paused for just a moment, glancing back at her. "You did, Linda. You chose this path, and now you have to walk it. I wish you well, but I can't be part of your life anymore." With that, I turned and walked out of the venue, the applause still ringing in my ears. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I breathed deeply, feeling an overwhelming sense of freedom wash over me. The pain was still there, but it felt manageable now, like a shadow fading into the background. I had confronted my past and laid it bare for everyone to see. I was ready to rebuild my life, no longer tethered to the ghosts of betrayal. As I drove away from the gala, I felt a sense of closure settle over me, a final act of liberation that would allow me to embrace a new beginning. It was time to write the next chapter of my life, one that was mine and mine alone.